search in the system themselves, so they can copy the instruction. They see something like this. It will be. So it's basically, I think you can make really nice collections where you can then decide, is this collection for everyone, or is it only for certain members or certain sort of personnel working in my company? That's the basic idea.
Yeah. So Erwin built this for a 15-day challenge to build one assistant every 15 days and built it on Glide. Really beautiful. So if you're curious, like, where do I put this stuff once I build it? Like today, you'll learn how to build it. And then if you're like, where do I go? Tomorrow will be a great chance to learn that. So I just put the link there in the chat for that session. And then I'm going to put the link to the calendar in general. So if you want to register for Erwin's session or any future sessions, you can get all of those on our Luma calendar, which is right there in the chat. The one I would draw your attention to, if today feels too easy, or after today, you're like, I'm ready to go deeper, we're going to have a Prompt Engineering 201 course that's going to get really specific into how to add dynamic features into your prompts. And really, when we talk about prompting, we're just talking about how to make an AI act the way we want. So that would be another good one if you kind of like today's topic. So perfect. Well, let's get started. I'm going to just do a typical question that I always ask, which is trying to figure out kind of where everyone is. So we're going to do an avalanche. You've probably done this with me before, but I'm going to have you type in where in the world you're calling in from and what you're drinking. And then on the count of 3, we'll all hit enter. So don't hit enter yet. You can just type it in, and then in just a few seconds, we'll all hit enter. So I'll let Noah and Akil and John, who's down in Iowa, type it in. And then when we're ready, we will hit the magic enter button. So I'll give you a count of 5 here. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's see where people are calling in from. We got folks from San Fran and Denver. Noah's on the water. Way to go. Canada, New York. All right, Renee, my GIF was on point for you. Phoenix, Amsterdam, Fargo. Oh, we got triple Fargo. I love it. Mumbai, Des Moines, Nottingham. Mango squash. You got to tell me what that means, Chris. I don't know what that is. That's great. More Netherlands friends. Awesome. Colombia. Oh my gosh. I think May, you have the best drink. So you win that. And Amir, great to have you drinking water. So you can see this is a very global audience. One thing I love about the chip communities, which someone gave us this idea 3 days ago, so I can't take credit, but they're like, you need to just call them chipsters. So you guys are all now officially chipsters. And the best part of Chipsters is that it's very global and we all learn from each other, very education focused. So you're now part of the Chipster community, and we like to help you on multiple platforms. So as always, we encourage you to join our Discord community. If you're not already, this is a place where you can ask questions. We have chipmunks. Yeah. So if you are comfortable with Discord, definitely jump in there and you can get help. We also have Slack as well, which is newer, not quite as active yet, but happy to have you there as well. And so you can always jump in on the Chip Slack there. So those are 2 great places. We created a channel in Discord all about the hackathon. So that's a great place to share. I know folks like Chris were on yesterday and had some great ideas. So we're going to talk prompting, and we're going to dive into prompting today. I'm going to give you 3 different frameworks. We're going to actually create a prompt ourselves and then have you build. So I'm excited to cover all of that. So let me first share my screen, and we'll kind of talk about what prompting is and then do a little bit of build it yourself. So let's jump over and keep those questions, comments coming. I love the humor. I love the chipsters. So here we go. Let's talk AI. So when we talk prompting, really what we're talking about is just how do you get an AI to act the way you want? It's just talking. And I think prompt engineering is actually an overly scary term, because when we talk about prompting, we're just talking about English, right? So, or Dutch, or just talking about language, right? So as long as you can communicate, you can prompt. So this is not something that's a big technical, scary thing to learn. So what today will be about is how to organize it. And the most important piece is to get the AI to act the way you want. So when you think about a prompt, just think about chatting, think about it like texting a friend. And what's nice is it's very iterative. So a tool like Chip or ChatGPT or Claude, you can put in your instructions and then see how it behaves and then change them. The big difference between Chip and ChatGPT or Claude is that you can pre-train it, right? You can create a prompt that you really like, and then every time you engage with that AI tool, it's always going to take those instructions into account. With ChatGPT, you'd have to build a custom GPT, which you host on their site. You can't own it. You don't see the data. If you're using ChatGPT or Claude directly, you have to put in those instructions every time. So the reason why I love Chip is that you can find really great prompts and then use them all the time. So we're going to show you how to do that today. So we're going to start by showing with the prompts how it changes how an AI behaves. So the prompt is going to tell the AI what type of information it should use and how it should talk. And I like to quickly explain how generative AI works, because I think it explains why prompts matter. So when you think about a generative AI tool is creating new information. It's not like Google that's pulling an answer. It's creating new information. And the way it does that is it looks at the history of all the text in the internet, and it creates basically a bell curve of what's the next word or the next character even that I should answer with. And so if you say, what, the next word is most likely going to be are or is or a verb, right? And so when you think about a bell curve, that verb is going to be kind of in the middle of the bell curve. And there's possibilities on the outskirts. And that's where we talk about hallucinating, which is just more creative, more unusual answers. And so when we use an instruction, what you can do is essentially shrink that bell curve. So instead of all the text in the history of the internet, if I tell an AI, you are a copywriter, now the possible answers get smaller because it's going to pull the text that copywriters have used in the past. Or you are a scientist in a third grade chemistry class. Now the possible answers are going to get a lot smaller, right? Because it's more simple language, it's a specific topic, and so we get fewer options on the bell curve. So that's kind of like a slightly mathematical, technical way of explaining it, but that helps me to think about why I need instructions and why a simple phrase like you are a chemistry teacher can make a really big difference, because it essentially shrinks the potentials to a tiny, tiny level. So I'm going to tell you how to do that with a simple framework I call the RIPE framework. So the RIPE framework stands for role, instructions, parameters, and examples. So what I'm going to do is give you kind of the 4 pieces of this framework, and then I'm going to have you build one just on a piece of paper, not even with AI, just to like build a framework. So you can kind of be thinking as we go, what's an example you might want to use it with, and then we'll kind of do that. So first, the role, simply we tell the AI who to be. So for example, be a friendly chef who loves Italian food. Be a third grade chemistry teacher. Be a Dutch musician who helps create content around music in Erwin's case, or whatever it might be. So I would say a simple sentence. You definitely need a noun. If you have a couple of adjectives, that's helpful, but no more than this. You are a what, right? That's your role. Now, once we have a role, we can give it a clear instruction. This is its job, right? So you are someone who loves Italian food. You're a chef. Create tasty pasta recipes for beginners, right? Do this, create blog posts for people who love music, create a list of keywords that I should use in my local business. So that's going to be our instruction, the I. The third step of the framework is the P, the parameter. So we want to give it guardrails, because again, if we let it go anywhere it wants, it can go off course. And as we start to get answers, we might find that it's too verbose, maybe too technical, too beginner. So this is where you can kind of hone your prompt. So only use 5 ingredients that take no more than 30 minutes to cook. Use lots of emojis. Use a friendly tone, those sort of things. Now, the third step is the example. And I think this is probably the most important piece. There's a little feedback. I'm just going to mute somebody here. Let's see. All right. Cool. So the fourth piece is the example. And I think this is the most forgotten piece of a great prompt. AI is really good at mimicking and learning. And so if you can give it 2 or 3 good examples of the thing you want, it'll be really good at copying that format and learning from it based on the input. So in my example, I might say, here's a simple recipe, spaghetti with garlic and olive oil. And maybe I even list the ingredients. Maybe not. Maybe I just give it something like that. And so you can think about, okay, if I'm going to give keywords for local businesses, I want to give an example of a good keyword list, or an example of a good email, or example of a good blog post. And you're going to put that right in the instruction. You don't have to add that as files. You put it right in there because it's going to use that every single time. So that's going to be our first first step. So let me check the chat where we're at, any questions you have, and then we are going to build one ourselves. So let's see. Great questions. Chipsters. So a lot of variations in the output. does that just happen to you? And I would say, it's generative, so it does generate different answers. And so having examples will be the best way to sort of ground the GPT into a type of answer. So in Petrina's case, if you feel like the answers are wildly different, I would give more examples and more specific examples. Good question, Christopher. Yep. Slightly more similar. Good one. Yeah, Chris had a good answer there. Fantastic. All right. So you guys are having a good conversation. Keep going. That's amazing. That sounds like you guys are rocking. So let's do a quick exercise here to actually build our first RIPE framework. And then we're going to put that into place. So I'm going to give you 1 minute and to create a role. So just think right now, what is a use case for AI? And I'm going to give it a role. So it should be as simple as you are a what. So again, put those in the chat box. And after about 50 seconds here, we're going to hit enter and we can see everybody's roles. So I'll put a little bit of music back on here so it's less awkward, and then I'll see your roles. So go ahead in the chat, just write it in here. No need for anything more technical than that. About 30 seconds. So if you're just joining us, we're creating a role for our AI tool. So simple sentence, you are a what? You are a chef, you are a SEO expert, you are a writer. All right, we're coming through. So yeah, let's let them out. Go ahead and hit enter if you wrote it in there. So you're a Spanish teacher. You're a CMO of my design agency with specialization in social media marketing. You're a cook that specializes in Indian meals. Yum. Awesome. CEO to make AI accessible. Digital marketer. Yard art reseller. Fantastic. Yes. Awesome. These are all really good roles. You can think about if there's the more specific you are, the more specific your answers will be, right? So you're a Spanish teacher. Is it for adults? Is it for kids, right? Or is it for beginners or advanced? For CMO, I like how we have specialization, right? Cook that specializes in Indian meals. Maybe you get even more specific for vegetarians, for areas, or if you want it more broad, you can do that. So great job. So now we have our role. And for those of you who haven't sent them in, that's okay. You can write them down because we're going to build one. So second, we're going to give it an instruction. So for your instruction, just simply say your job is to what? Like, this is what you're going to do. So your job is to create recipes for Indian meals. Your job is to create a Spanish lesson for third graders. Your job is to create social media content posting schedule, right? Your job is to create an app that helps people build AI tools, like whatever it might be. So I'll give you about 30 seconds here. You can think about it, and then we'll send them off all at once. So we'll hit the music here. All right, about 10 seconds. We'll hit enter. So you can get your instructions in. All right, 3, 2, 1. Let's hit enter and see what instructions we have. Your job is to make 30-minute recipes with lamb meat. I love it. Very specific, very clear. Your job is to teach others to train. Yep, good one, Christopher. I like where you're going. Create an upcoming strategy and draft. Follow clients to keep them informed of real estate transactions. Create a data model. Amazing. Really good. Keep them coming. Anybody who wants to share their instructions, this is really great. You can get some quick feedback. So what you can see is like, these don't have to be overly complex, right? Like we're getting them fairly specific. And one of the beauties of kind of these prompts is it gives us a good starting point, and we can get more and more specific as we grow, as we use it and find different kind of behaviors. You create content for business profiles. Perfect. Cool. So the next one is our P, the parameter. So this is where we're going to tell it things to do or not to do. So I like to think about this as do X, don't do Y. So do use lots of emojis, don't be overly verbose. Do share recipes that include lamb meat, don't include, a certain type of spice. Do include Google business profiles for retail, don't do this. This is kind of where you can set the guardrails of what your app maybe needs to do. So think about any kind of limitations. A lot of times I would think about like reading level is a really good one. Like, should it be writing like a PhD student or a 5th grade student, right? Think about the output. So do share it as a bulleted list versus as something else. So those would be some examples. So I'll give you about 30 seconds here to come up with your parameters. Great question from Renee. Early on, I was told to avoid negative prompts. Yeah, I don't know. I've never had any issue. I could see it being like overly specific. I would only include negative prompts if it's like you definitely never want it, right? Like, don't use this word, or sometimes I'll say like always use the first person versus the third person, right? Things like that. Don't include text before the code. Like if you're outputting HTML or something like that's kind of helpful. So, all right. So when you're ready, go ahead and send me your parameters. So let's see what we got. Use simple language. Yep. Don't be too verbose. Make them hot, not too complex. Include content for service businesses. Yep, exactly. And parameters are totally flexible, right? If you don't want any, you don't have to. But this is kind of a nice place to stuff that stuff. And as you see the results, it's a really easy way to start kind of adding to your phone. That's good. I like what Noah said here is like, this is a great place to say, do make sure to consider files, right? So if you're uploading knowledge files or URLs, that's a really good place to direct the AI to use that. Love that one from May, no longer than 10 lines. I use that a lot because a lot of times it'll be too fast or too long. If you're using, Chip or something else via SMS, you maybe do use, more like texting rather than documents is a good one. Great. So then the last step, if you have an example of what you want, let's put that in. So you can simply say, here's an example of a good answer, or here's an example of a good recipe, or here's an example of a good lesson, right? And then you can paste it in. So I'll give you about 10, let's just do like 30 seconds if you have that. All right, let's give you about 10 seconds and you can put those in. All right, let's see if we got any examples. I know sometimes it's hard to, oh, that's great. Erwin just got the whole thing. That's perfect. You can put the whole example in. So a lot of times I tell people like, you can attach files, but if you put it in the instructions, every message that's getting sent to the AI is actually including those instructions. So you could imagine the AI is only going to go to the files if it needs it for the answer. If it's in the instructions, it's getting reminded every single message. So I kind of err on the side of like put more in the instructions if it's important, and think about files as like a second class citizen to that. If it's a file, it'll be used less than if it's in the instructions. Perfect. Yeah. Examples of a hook there from Ricardo. Perfect. Yeah. Really good examples. So what's nice, a lot of times we're using AI to work faster, to do something we already do, or our company does, or a company does. And so you probably have examples, right, of a blog post or a recipe or an email or whatever. So just go get the one that sounds like you. The other benefit of an example, it'll naturally take your tone of voice from that example. So if you wrote, a Spanish lesson in May's case, it'll write a similar style and tone of Spanish lesson without you having to overly prompt it. So examples are great because it kind of gives them a role and a tone and a reading level and a skill level without you having to explicitly say all of it, because that's going to catch it from that example. So really great. Okay, so now you guys have an example. We're going to give you a couple additional frameworks that you can use. Is there a concern with too large of an example slowing it down? Not really. The speed won't really change. Some of them have limits on how many tokens you can send. So the biggest limiter is like if the instruction gets too long, you can't actually send that into the AI. You pay per token if you have your own account or your own API. So having longer instructions will send more tokens, but the quality versus it's a minuscule increase in cost. If you're using chip, like you're not even paying for that anyway, so I wouldn't worry about it. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about the speed there. Cool. Well, let's add in like another variable here, another type of prompting that kind of builds on the RIPE framework, which is step prompting. So one of the best ways I've found to take a more complex task is to break it down into individual steps. Sometimes this is called like chain of thought or chain of reasoning. I like to think about it as steps because we can really flip the conversation where the AI is going to ask the user for information and then give an answer. Whereas chain of thought, that's kind of where you're in ChatGPT and you're telling it all along the way what to do. With a tool like Chip where you can pre-program it, the end user doesn't have to know anything and the AI can ask them. So it'll ask for a little bit of information and then create the answer. So as an example, it might say something like, if it's a content creating chat, what type of content do you want to write? So this is the AI saying this to the user. I'm prompting, like I'm putting this into our step prompt, right? But then the end user is going to put in LinkedIn message. Then the AI is going to ask again, is there a transcript or document you want to base it on, right? So these steps are getting information from the user, and then it'll create the LinkedIn post based on what they shared. So this is nice because if I just went in and said, write me a LinkedIn post, I'd have to explain everything and I might not remember. This is going to ask for the information we need. So we can add step prompts into our RIPE framework to make it really powerful. So I'm going to show you that. So it might have additional steps like create content and then ask for edits, and then it's kind of complete. So let me show you what an example of this looks like. Let's jump over to, all right, we'll jump into our app. And then I'm going to have you duplicate this so that you can actually play with it. So you can close your eyes while I scroll really fast through a bunch of apps. For those of you asking for folders and sorting, I agree. It's high on my list. All right, so here's an example of a step prompt within the RIPE framework. So the role, you're a skilled copywriter creating content that matches the tone and style of a person. Here's the instructions, here's the parameters. So then what I do is I add that kind of right after the parameters. And what I'm going to do is say, start the conversation by asking the following questions one at a time. Wait for an answer before moving on. Do not ask more than one. Because what it has a tendency to do is say, here's 5 questions, please answer them all. So I really want it to go more conversationally. So first, what kind of content do you want to write? Are there keywords you want? Is there a transcript? Anything else? And then do the job, right? Then create the content. And then I even add a few caveats. Like if it's a short post, give them options. I reminded them not to use words like revolutionize because it's trained on my writing. Apparently I say that a lot. And then I even say, if they want, create a post in HTML. And then I gave examples here of different types. So as you can see, I have like a place to add YouTube, a place to add blog emails, LinkedIn. And the other thing to kind of point out here, I've started using what's called Markdown, which is just a way to organize prompts. I think this is really good because it helps you go into a prompt to edit it very quickly. So I'll typically do like pound roles. This is just like headline 2, basically. So you can see I have role, instructions, parameters, step prompt, and then examples. And then under my examples, I can kind of, I can nestle them, right? I can put YouTube underneath the examples, blog underneath the examples. I could even do like, if I had different types of YouTube, let's see if I did like, YouTube shorts maybe, right? Like that might be a different example underneath YouTube. So this is mostly for me organizationally. I do think it has a little bit of an impact on the AI by helping it organize the content. So that's something you could definitely use as you build this out. So what I'm going to have you do now is think about the step prompt that you would want to use for your example that you just built. So I'll give you 1 minute. Just think about if you flip this into a step-by-step, what information would you want the user to give it before it created the Spanish lesson or the recipe? So in Erwin's case, it might be first ask them what ingredients they have in their house. Second, ask if they have any dietary restrictions. Third, ask them how much time they have to cook, and then create the recipe. in May's case, it might be, you know, explain or tell us what level you are, tell us if there's a topic that you're interested in, and then it'll create a lesson in Spanish around soccer because I like soccer, right? J-Bro is talking about local business. It might actually step prompt to say, what kind of business do you have? Do you currently have a profile? You know, how do you describe your business? Whatever the things are that would help create a better answer, he could actually ask them. So I'll give you about 30 more seconds here. Think about, you know, 1 to 3 questions that you would want to ask or get from the user to improve it. Some of you might be building just for yourself, then it's a little easier because you can just give those answers. But think about if you're giving this to someone else to use, how would you make it more relevant? So I'll give you about 20 more seconds here, and then we'll all kind of send in any steps we have, and then we'll go build one together. So I'll go ahead and type those in. All right, I'll give you about 10 more seconds, and then we'll hit enter. All right, so go ahead and send them out when you got them. So May's great here. Tell us what level you are. What are your favorite topics? What are your favorite hobbies? Yep, top 3 difficulties, exactly. So you can think about this as you are prompting the AI, but then you're now allowing the user to really customize it just for that session, right? And they're gonna, AI will remember that throughout the conversation. And so once you ask a few questions, it'll create the content with those kind of ideas or rules in place. Let's see what else we got. So what ingredients? Yep. Wait for an answer. Ask the following questions. What platform? What's the expected length? Target audience? Exactly. Perfect. Awesome job. I'm gonna let my dog out. Perfect. Good. So you guys now have learned the right framework, step prompting. Let me give you one more, and then we'll go build. This one I'll just kind of show you, and then if you want to use it, you kind of know how. So the last kind of framework I like to think about and use sometimes is what I call branch prompting. So branch prompting is where you want to give instructions depending on the user's use case. So you guys just came up with steps like recipes, but I might want to ask them, what kind of food do you want, right? I might want to ask them, do you want Indian food or Italian food? And if I ask and they say Italian food, then maybe the questions I ask are more specific around Italian food. A better example of this, I worked with a dentist and they wanted to help people with insurance. And so for them, they first had to ask people, do you have insurance or are you looking for insurance? If they said they had insurance, it was a lot different questions like, what is your insurance provider? You know, how much does it cover? Do you want to know if our procedures work for your plan? If they don't have insurance, it went down a different track of like, are you interested in paying yourself, self-pay? Would you like more information on potential insurance plans? So you can think about a branch prompt as an if-then statement. So it handles different scenarios. So let me give you kind of an example. So if we're doing the content creation app, we might prompt something like this. So your content creation assistant, ask the user what type of content they need help with. So if they need a blog post, ask about the topic and desired word count. If they're doing an email, request information about the audience. If they're doing LinkedIn, you know, ask them how many variations they want. If they're doing an X post, ask them if they want a thread or a single post. So it's kind of creating step prompts that go to a certain area. So that's kind of a nice way to put a lot of things into one AI tool without confusing it, right? So you're kind of breaking your prompt into different sections. And the way that I would do that then is to have a double pound for kind of the different sections. So it might be like, what type of content would you like to write? And they say blog post or LinkedIn. And then I might have like another section that would be something like this. It might be like pound LinkedIn questions, right? And then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 on LinkedIn, but then I might have one for blogs, right? And so the AI should follow whichever section they answer to, and I can get more specific. So if they say LinkedIn, it'll ask these things. And if they say blog, it'll ask those things. So that's what I call branch prompting, as a quick way to put a lot in one AI, but also allow it to be specific. So now before we go live to the marketplace and actually build one of these, let's see what questions you have. So feel free, based on what we just did, if you have a question, drop it in the chat, or if you can, feel free to unmute. Yeah, interesting. So how does Chip handle this? Because you've had a hard time getting branches to work. I mean, we just do it based on the assistance API with GPT-4o, and I've gotten it to work pretty well just with the kind of the prompting. So I don't know if there's any special sauce on it, except that being really clear using those headlines has seemed to work pretty well for me. I have found that adding more information, like more files, sometimes confuses it. So actually less is more sometimes, and putting the onus a bit on the user in a way that's not technical. So by asking them, for information, the responses will get specific to them, but you don't have to put all that in the instructions. Same thing with files, right? You might put files in the training, but you can actually ask the user, do you want to upload an example of whatever you've built before, and we'll create other variations. So that's kind of an interesting one. Cool. For May's question, branch prompting should go in the instructions part. Yeah, I would put it in the instructions. And again, like that right framework, that's a starting point. So I would maybe add, you're going to have different instructions for different branches. So you might have instructions 1, maybe it's instructions beginner, right? And if it's a beginner Spanish speaker, it has different steps. Instructions advanced, and then it has different steps under that. Yeah, for Ricardo's question, 4.0 is much better. I think it was really powerful. A lot of our users are preferring Claude Sonnet right now. So if you're a pro user, you can switch between ChatGPT and Claude Sonnet 3.5 and Gemini. You don't have to get into the weeds on this, but my take is GPT 4.0 is better at more systematic technical things. I find Claude really powerful for like conversational things, and Gemini has a huge context window. So you can have those massive instructions Kyle was asking about more so than other tools. So great questions. So can we pass existing data about the user to the AI if we already have collected info from the user about what they want? Yeah. So we don't have it right now. We don't have an API in. We've been talking about that. Like, so you could send information into the knowledge, but you could do it in the questions, right? So if the user has asked anything, it would be in that conversation. Right now we have memory in chat threads. So if you want to like keep memory, you would go back to the conversation you had. Every new conversation is like new memory. So it starts fresh for the user. That's kind of how it's built currently. Yeah, great. I find the same way. So that's kind of an interesting takeaway. So now that we have kind of built one, maybe less on an AI tool, I want you to, we're going to copy one into your own account and then build it together. So I'm going to share my screen again, and you guys can follow along. I'm going to give you the link to where we are, and then you can do the same thing I'm doing on the screen. So what we're going to do here is you're going to actually duplicate an existing AI tool. That'll bring the entire prompt in, and then you can just tweak the prompt based on whatever your use case is. So I'm going to share my screen and kind of show you how to do this prompting, and then we'll dive in and see how you guys do. So sharing the screen here. So as you've probably heard, Chip has a marketplace where you can go find existing AI tools. Some of these have duplication on. So this is a great way to go see how other people prompt, right? So you can go in here and pick, apply for a grant, or you can search and find an existing tool and see how other people prompt. They might not do it the same way as me, which is fine, but it's a good way to just like see how things work. So what I'd like for you to search is go ahead and click Protege, Protege. So you can head to app.chip.ai/explore and just type in the word Protege, and we're going to look for this guy with the sailor hat. So I'm going to go ahead and click that sailor hat guy. You can go to that link and type in Protege. The link is in the chat. I'll also grab a link directly to this application if that's easier. So I'll put the link in the chat right now to go straight to this application. Let's see, there you go. Yeah. So you can see here, we are currently using this, this template. So there's kind of two things you can do in the marketplace. You can just straight up use someone else's chip chat, right? So if you build a chip chat and you share it, other people can go and just access that. They can't see the prompt, they can't change it. So this is what we call an assistant. And then we have a template, which means that people can duplicate it. So this is a template, digital Protege template. So once you're here, you can click this double squares in the top right, which says duplicate this template. That's going to bring this template into your chip account. So if you don't have a chip account, or if you're not logged in, you'll have to log in after you click this. It'll prompt you to do that, but then it'll bring you right to the prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and click this and show you that process, and then I'll check in on you guys. So I'm going to click duplicate this template. And as you can see, it immediately takes me over to Chip with everything that this person had built. So you can see here, this is the prompt all in there with the step prompt and the examples that I showed you. It has the same conversation starters that person had. It has the same capabilities. If there's any files, those would still be there. So essentially everything is as they built it. The style as well with the logo and brand. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here and see how you guys are doing. So go ahead in the chat. Give me a 1 if you were able to duplicate this template. Give me a 2 if you're lost or uninterested or otherwise just watching me. That's totally fine too, but want to make sure this is easy and you can follow along. Okay, we got some 1s coming in. Awesome. Tam, I'm glad you're here. Great to have you. Lazar, good to have you as well. Aaron, good to see you. All right, so it looks like you guys were able to duplicate this for the most part. If you're following along, that's okay too, but I want to show you how you can duplicate and then how you can edit. So now that you have this app already built, you have a great outline to change. So I'm going to share my screen one more time and we'll go into this template. So if you want to build, I recommend everyone build a digital protege. I think this is one of the best use cases for AI, which is just help you write things faster. And remember our framework, we talk a lot of times the AI sandwich. It's always going to start with you asking a question, AI building something, and then you editing it again. So don't think about this like taking you out of the equation. Instead, think about it as creating great rough drafts for you that you can use. So once you're in this application, you can go into these instructions and edit them. So anything with a bracket and an X is where you could quickly make changes if you want to create a copyrighted one. So if you want to create a copywriter, you could just say in the tone and style of May, right? You can put your name in there. In my case, I'm going to say Scott, or it could be in the style of Chip, custom GPT software provider, right? Something like that. So whatever the thing is, whether it's a company or person, you can put that in. Then you can go down here and you can see the instructions. If you want to change those, you could. You don't have to. And then you can change the name here, first person pronoun, and then here's the step prompts, right? So what you can do now is just go into this and put your own examples. So here's an example of a YouTube summary. So if you're a YouTuber, you can put in your YouTube summary. If you're not, you just delete that, right? If you want to help it create blog posts, you can just put in blog posts examples here or as files, which I'll show you in a second. Same thing with email, same thing with LinkedIn, right? So you can basically just edit the examples section and you have your protege, right? I would edit this one, to be like Chip, and you can see the questions. So that would be if you want to just take what exists, create your own digital protege. If you want to instead take the idea you've been working on, you could actually just delete my stuff, right? And put in the ideas you just shared. So instead of a skilled copywriter, you are a skilled chef cooking Indian food, what Erwin had. And I could just go back and paste in the pieces that you just said. Step prompt, totally optional. Maybe you don't need those, right? If it's a simple thing. So that's another way that you could do this, is just kind of follow along by tweaking it. So I'm going to put that back here. Cool. And now let's just show you one other way to customize. So once you have this template in here, you can edit it as much as you want. The last step is you can add knowledge sources. So anything that doesn't fit in the context window or anything that's maybe harder to get, like a video or a URL, you can do that through the knowledge source. So if Erwin maybe doesn't have a recipe, he could just search for, best Indian naan recipe. We'll see how this is. And I can go grab this fluffy, bubbly, chewy, and I'm going to take this URL now. And then on my Chip chat, I can just click on the URL section, add this in, and do naan recipe. And this is now going to give an example of a great Indian naan recipe. So if I'm asking for naan, it's going to take that information from that. By default, these just take the URL you give it, and they're not automatically refreshed. So if you want your about page and your pricing page, you'd upload those separately. If your pricing page changes, you'd come back in and delete it and then re-add it, is how we have it now. So those knowledge sources live here. My favorite one is probably YouTube. So if you think about May as a teacher, there's a lot of content about teaching Spanish, right? Examples. You can add those videos in. What we're actually doing, we're not taking the captions. We're actually taking the entire video and putting it into Markdown. So we're transcribing the entire thing, putting it into Markdown, and then allowing Chip to search that. Once a YouTube link has been added anywhere on the Chip network, it is then cached, basically. So it's also super fast. So one thing you could know is that you can add that as a builder, right? So you can add that as a knowledge source here. You can also ask your user to do it. So if we kind of put this digital protege into action, it's going to do that step prompt. So first it's going to ask about, what do I want? I'm going to say blog post. And then it's probably going to ask me at some point, okay, keywords, let's do like AI for education. And it'll ask me if there's a transcript or document. So I could add in a YouTube video. I could add in a file by clicking this and uploading like a transcript that I have of like maybe an interview. I could add in an image even. So one of the ways that I use this digital protege is I do interviews with people like Erwin for our YouTube channel. And what I'll do is take the transcript from my video software, and then I'll put that entire transcript in here, and then I'll have it create all my different content types off of that interview. So it'll create the YouTube, summary, it'll create a LinkedIn post, it'll create a blog post. And that way it's able to take one core piece of content, which is the interview, and then create lots of different content off of it. You can see this is really powerful, and we could take it even the final step. We can add a goal here. Sorry, not a goal. Let's go into the share, and we can, oops, sorry, one more time, into chats. And we're actually going to export this. So I could go into the chat log and click on that little gear, and I can actually push this out to my Google Sheet. So you can imagine if you are creating content, you maybe have a content manager or somebody, they could just go through this Google Sheet and take my protege blog posts from the sheet into wherever platform they want to. So that's a really nice way to like get your content out automatically. And we have some fun ways that you can do that coming up next week, where we're adding custom actions where you can actually send this directly to Gmail, directly to WordPress, whatever it might be. So let me kick it back over to you all and see if you were able to follow along or what you were able to try. So let's talk to Lazar. Had a question here. Yeah, exactly. So good question on the platform specifics. For YouTube, can you do a channel? It's just individual videos right now. No, great question. So yeah, you got to add the videos you want in there. Great. So let me, in the chat, give me a 1 if you were able to iterate or modify that protege. Give me a 2 if I lost you along the way and you need help. I don't have to call on you. I just want to make sure, yeah, we were able to get there. Amazing. All right. We got 5 at least out of the 20 or so. We're getting there. We're getting there. That's awesome. Cool. So that's how you can, put prompts into action. And I think using that marketplace is a really great hack. And not all of them are going to be, prompts that you like. But that's a really fun way to kind of browse around and to see what's possible. The other thing you can do is you could use this as a way to either sell or share your prompts, right? So let me show you that very quick, and then we'll take more questions. So keep those coming. I saw Noah had one there. That's awesome. So when I'm on my chip chat, I'm going to share the screen, I guess, and then you'll see it. Perfect. Yep. So when we're on the chip chat, if we want to, once we have a prompt that we really like, we can actually go here and click Publish to Marketplace. And then there's a quick setup here. So you can decide if you want it to be accessible. So maybe your clients or your colleagues can use it, but they can't change it. Or if you want it to be a template, in which case they can personalize it and brand it, do everything you just did. Now, not only can you choose if you want it to be used or edited, you can also choose if it's free or paid. So you can actually charge people for your template. So what I'm seeing some people starting to do is, if you're an agency or a teacher, you might create your AI tool as a template and then encourage other people to just duplicate it. And then they can iterate or improve it based on that. So maybe you build the mother template and you let them create variations on it. That way it saves a lot of time, so you don't have to go in and create it for them. Or it maybe even is like a line of revenue for you. You can create a thank you message, which they get when they duplicate it. And then you can add a link in there too. So if you want to be really creative, you could have a YouTube welcome, that they see once they duplicate it. And that could be one way to kind of generate business. And then you just publish it. We actually are manually approving all of those. So that way we are only getting stuff in the marketplace that's high quality. But as long as you follow like the right framework, and it's going to be something we want to share. So that's a great way to kind of build things out. And I encourage you, on any of these, any of the chip pages, you can go to Marketplace at the top and then find applications that you maybe want to copy. So that's a look at how I would think about using and building, different templates for prompting. And what we're going to do in 2 days is the 201 version, which gets into dynamic information within a prompt, industry-specific use cases, and kind of going deeper. So I'm going to grab the link one more time to the 201 class, as well as custom GPTs and Glide, because I think those are the next 2 events that that you'll really like. And so I'll grab those and then we'll take questions. So definitely drop those in. First one I'll share here is the custom, is to add chip to Glide with Erwin tomorrow, with Erwin plus Glide. So someone from Glide is coming. So you'll get kind of the expert opinion. And then I'll grab the 201 that's on Thursday, led by Tom. And he has a background in SEO and as an agency. So definitely a great one to talk to in terms of like how to sell this stuff. So there's the two. All right, so I'll go hit the questions here and then we'll kind of wrap up with anything else you need. So feeding the entire Twitter, LinkedIn posting. Yeah, exactly what Christopher said. You know, like find 3 to 5 examples that are good and that'll be enough. I know I was talking to, let's see, we were talking about this just in my previous meeting about how to give email examples. You don't need a lot, right? You just need ones that capture your essence. So I would think about, how do I share a LinkedIn post that is promotional, LinkedIn post that's educational, LinkedIn post that's personal, or whatever types of LinkedIn posts, give one example of each. Same thing with email. You have, you know, logistics emails, sales emails, inquiry emails. Instead of worrying about giving it all your emails, give it like 1 or 2 examples of each type, and then that'll really capture the essence. It's a really good feedback there, Christopher. Let's see. Yeah, hooks. All right, that's a great example Lazar has here of like good and bad examples. I like that example. That example of a bad example is a really good way to showcase. And one of the things you can do with Chip is you can see the logs. So you can actually see the conversations people are having and then improve your prompt based on that, right? So if people are getting lost or you think the answers aren't good, see if you can prompt it to change how it responds. Yep, great question, Kyle. And I think someone answered, yep. So you can create graphics and images. One little alpha for you all is we have Flux working in the background right now. We haven't launched it to the actual production yet, but Flux is like a new image generation option that is a lot more photorealistic. So we're kind of playing around with that. Right now, it uses the OpenAI kind of image generation, but you can definitely use that. How do we use conversation starters? Exactly. Exactly what you said. I think it's a great way to show people what's possible, but also lead them down different paths. So I like to use them kind of as a prompt branch options, like you said, May, where it's like, you know, write me a post, give me feedback on an existing post, give me ideas for a post, write an outline for a post. Like maybe those are my branches where I'm trying to get them. In the Spanish example, maybe it's, you know, review my work, give me ideas of new projects, write me a lesson. So I kind of like it to use it that way. They can always type in, but that's a good way to use kind of those questions. Erwin had a bounce. Great to have you. That's all right, Noah. Feel free to connect via email or otherwise. Awesome. Yeah. So Christopher mentioned he's a Canadian group mentor. We do have Chip chapters around the world. I think May just jumped into our LATAM one, right? Did you get in there, May, hopefully? So we have a Spanish-speaking community, French-speaking community. We have a Brazilian community, Indian community. So definitely jump in there so you can connect with people, hopefully in person or at least online, that are doing similar work. So that's prompting 101. I'm going to send you that entire deck and give you, you know, the chance to follow through those steps. And hopefully you can join us for 201 on Thursday if you want to go even deeper. I'll hang here for any questions you have, and I'll send the follow-up email to everyone who registered. So we'd love for you to use that, ask questions, and happy to dive in and support however I can. So welcome to the Chip Hackathon. Remember that you can enter what you build for potential cash prizes, and most importantly, I think, to get people to see it, because we're going to promote these. And so here's the link to learn more about the hackathon and to enter. What you just did is enough, right? So you can duplicate something, tweak it to your own business use case, and enter it. And you can enter as many times as you want. So enter one today, work on one for another week, enter it next week. If you got 5 on the deck, like I think Amir does, put them in. Happy to have you do that. So, all right, Chris. Cool. Yeah, happy to have a UK group as well. We have boots on the ground in the UK. So I think that makes sense as a next step. Remind me where you are in the UK. I know we have, I don't know if he's still here. Dominic is in Scotland. Serge is in London from our team. So it sounds like there's some love for the UK group. That's awesome. So I'll start that in Discord today and get you in there, Chris. And yeah, please invite others in there. This is very much Very much a bottoms up. Yeah, you can join too, man. We can be aspirationally British. I think that sums up a lot of Americans. Just yeah, it'd be fun to tour the empire once in a while. So fantastic. So any other questions? I'll vamp here for a few more seconds. But love seeing what you guys build. And as always, this is one framework, right? Don't feel too pigeonholed, but this is a great way to start and a great way to just not have to think too hard about the prompt initially. Use those logs to improve it. The more you see how people respond, the more specific you can get. And I can't wait to see what you guys build. So hopefully see you tomorrow in Glide and on Thursday for Prompt Engineering 201. And then we got a lot more fun surprises coming up. So keep those hackathon entries coming and we'll see you online. Great to hang with you all and talk to you all soon. Have a great day.